The study session meeting of November 6th, 2023. Members of the public are invited to attend in-person city council meetings in council chambers on the lower level of City Hall. Public access to tonight's meeting is also available on the city's YouTube channel online and by telephone using the call-in numbers posted on the meeting agenda. Joanna, will you call the roll, please?
Mayor Leidy,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lukman Hiramasa, Councilmember Long,
Here.
Councilmember Jaramillo,
Here.
Councilmember Kondo,
Here.
Councilmember Burns,
Here.
Councilmember Goff,
Here.
Councilmember Brown will be absent, and Councilmember Walker will be absent.
Thank you. We have two items on the agenda tonight. The first one is Senior Continuum of Care. City Manager Guyer will introduce this item.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So 2 items on the agenda tonight, and this first item is a long-awaited item referenced as Senior Continuum of Care. The purpose of the item is twofold, and the clicker is sensitive tonight, so I will try not to do that again. We're going to talk about what services we provide as a city this evening, as well as we have a guest speaker from Adams County with us, Health and Human Services, and I'll have Amanda introduce our special guest. And then we're gonna look for any feedback, direction from council tonight on gaps, and again, overall feedback that you might have on this topic of senior services. How we got here this evening, this was a request. It does date back to 2021, so I apologize that it's taken this long to get here. I will say it is somewhat serendipitous, though, because of the work that Adams County is going to talk about tonight, and that the efforts that they're making, nothing is in final form, but there's great collaboration taking place in terms of Adams County stepping forward and being more of a leader, in my mind, for senior services at the county level, which is a discussion point that we wouldn't have been previously able to share with you. So again, I apologize for the delay in bringing this item forward. It was one of the last remaining items that we got backlogged on from last year into this year. The request came about, I believe it was a senior resident in Northglenn had sent an email or a letter to members of council and expressed concern about the difficulty being able to age in place in Northglenn and just overall costs. And so there was also an expression of difficulty navigating senior resources, and that's certainly something that we've heard at the staff level and will be touched upon throughout this presentation. And then Amanda's going to take a deeper dive into Dr. Cog serving as our area agency on aging and what that means under the federal legislation that we adhere to in terms of supporting our seniors in our community. And then we'll touch on some of the additional steps that we've taken as a city, and then welcome any feedback and questions along the way. So I will turn it over to Amanda.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm going to start tonight with just a quick overview of the kind of federal and state pieces that really set the stage for us to be able to provide programming at the regional and local level. So at the federal level, we have the Older Americans Act, and this definitely is not one of those areas where I'm an expert, but I'm able to provide you with a kind of summary level detail. If there's additional information that you'd like, we're happy to try to get that for you. The Older Americans Act was enacted in 1965. In your packet, there is the Older Americans Act summary, which was prepared for Congress, and I think that I found that to be a really helpful document. So if that's that may be something that you find helpful as well, really goes through some details of the Older Americans Act for you. The Older Americans Act sets policy. It establishes the state and territorial units on aging and identifies the responsibilities for planning and policy development, establishes the area agencies on aging, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. It also establishes funding, which is subject to appropriation. Currently, the funding is established through 2024. And some of the primary areas where we're really impacted by that funding are through transportation dollars and through nutrition dollars. So some of the programs that our community members are really dependent on those programs are in those two areas. At the state or regional level, DRCOG has served as our area agency on aging for the Denver region since 1974. And that has served the 8-county region, which includes Adams, Arapahoe, Broomfield, Clear Creek, Denver, Douglas, Jeffco, and Gilpin. So it's a large region in this Denver metro area. Oh, goodness. I don't think I touched it from here. I'm not sure what happened there.
Should we start?
Would you like me to keep going, or do you want to pause for a minute until you have the screen?
We can
Put the
follow
presentation
along.
back on if you'd like.
We're on the Dr. Cog slide, yes? Or did you move past to the Aging Network?
You're on the DRCOG slide still.
Perfect. So slide 8, page 8, up back.
Okay, so we'll keep going while we're trying to get that image back up for you.
Okay.
So DRCOG administers those programs that are outlined through the Older Americans Act legislation. They serve in an advocacy role, both at the federal and state level. And then they are responsible for both direct service provision and contracted service provision in a variety of areas. So it includes information and referral services, case management, which they do provide direct service provision in that area, transportation. In the transportation realm, that is something where there's currently some local control, and Eddie Valdez with Adams County will talk about that here in a little bit. Meals, nutrition services, and legal services. I'm going to switch to the next slide here as we continue talking. This next graphic, I thought just did a really nice job. It comes from that attachment I referenced earlier, the Older Americans Act Overview and Funding document. I thought it did a really nice job of outlining what the Older Americans Act does and how those responsibilities are laid out from the federal level all the way down through to what the contractors that are funded with those Older Americans Act dollars. So on the top left corner, the Administration on Aging is established by the Older Americans Act at the federal level. From there, you have those state units on aging, and then the area aging agencies on aging. So for us, our AAA, the area agencies on aging, because that's a mouthful, currently is DRCOG. DRCOG is then responsible for helping identify the local service providers and direct services. So those could include, some of you may have heard of VIA. They're a transit provider right now in this area. We've got the Senior Resource Center, we have Senior Hub, they may be providing adult day, they may be providing Meals on Wheels services. Those are all services that are in part or in whole, generally in part, covered through those Older Americans Act dollars. So they're contracted providers through DRCOG, through those Older Americans Act dollars. And then on the right side are all the different services that are provided through that network. So you can see there's a huge list of services and programs that are provided to our community members as a result of the programs, the legislation, and the funding that's set up as a part of that network.
I just quickly ask a question.
Yes.
These services, are they offered like based on income of the seniors, or how?
So typically, with the programs that are identified through Older Americans Act, they are not typically, or they're not asking for income qualifying information, but are targeting individuals who are, I'm looking for my list in the memo here, because there's a list, who are frail, live in rural areas, are part of a marginalized community, or have low income. So there's a list of criteria where there's targeted populations, but it's not, those services are not limited to those individuals typically. City services, on the other hand, are generally open to, and you'll see that list as we get a little further through, are typically open to our entire population and accessible to everyone. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay. It looks like that's still in the works, so we'll pause for a minute, but I'm going to introduce as we go on to the next slide. That next layer is at Adams County. So the way we had this set up, oh, we're there, perfect timing. So as we continue kind of from that big picture at the federal level, then to the state and the regional level at DRCOG, and now to the county level, I'd like to introduce Eddie Valdez. He's the Deputy Director for Adams County Human Services. And Eddie was going to speak with you a little bit about the programs that Adams County is offering and the transition to a hybrid AAA that provides a greater level of local control for senior services and that direct service provision at the county level. So with that, I would like to introduce Eddie Valdez.
Are we back up and running here?
We are, so I will just move this forward for you. Oh, not yet, I'm sorry. I'm not sure what's happening.
Did you do that one? No? Do you want to try the remote now to see if it works?
Sure, let's see if we can.
Okay.
There we go.
Oh,
Perfect. So I will hand that over to you and let you take it from here.
thank you so much for having me. Like Amanda said, my name is Eddie Valdez. I'm the Deputy Director with Adams County Human Services. And I was asked to come and really talk about where we are headed as an agency and how we are addressing, serving our aging population. So again, thank you very much for having me this evening.
Maybe like right.
It is.
This one, right?
Yeah, that is the right.
I will go into it. So just a little bit of background about kind of where we're at. Like Amanda talked about, we were looking at our model with DRCOG, working very closely with DRCOG on how we are serving our aging population, not only in Adams County, but really across the state. As we started to dig into this with our Board of County Commissioners and our county manager at the time, we really saw some gaps in kind of where we're seeing some services, specifically with Adams County. So from the direction of our board, we were requested by our board to become our kind of a hybrid option with DRCOG, not fully taking total control of kind of the AAA in Adams County, but really having a hybrid model. And we really built this after working very closely with Douglas County and really working in collaboration with DRCOG. So again, our board asked us to kind of become its own AAA. In collaboration with DRCOG, it was determined that the AAA hybrid model would be the best fit for Adams County to sort out. In that, it was estimated that Adams County could receive some funding by applying for and receiving grants through DRCOG. So as we start talking about the funding piece here in another slide or two, there really is a combination of general fund dollars from the county as well as going after grants with DRCOG. And that's why the collaboration has happened and will continue to happen between Adams County Human Services and DRCOG. So we can go after certain things that we really want to have more local control on, and we could really leave some services that DRCOG is doing well with Adams County and really have that flexibility to kind of maneuver for, whatever community that be, whether it be North Glen, Thornton, whatever the case may be. So we're really looking at that model really closely. So the county also committed contributing general fund dollars to support the development of the aging programs. This request is a total of $1 million in county funding for the first year of operations. In year two, we will request through our budget process $2 million to further expanded services, and for year three and ongoing, roughly about $3 million out of general fund to support these programs moving forward. This allows us to build the program over time. And I do want to emphasize in my presentation today, this is still in the works. So it was in 2022, 2023, roughly around that time, that was when we got direction from our board to really start working on this. One of the, as you could see on here, one of the key pieces we wanted to put in place was requesting and getting approval for our aging and adult administrator position. So that was requested and approved through our 2023 budget, and something that we'll recruit for and fill in early 2024. So we really are looking at that as the initial step, or kind of the foundation for these programs as we start building these moving forward. So again, funding strategy really to develop in anticipation of possible funding cliff. You know, it's not a secret to anybody in this room that there is a shortfall of funding for our aging population and how we're addressing that. I'll talk about how that really impacts our programming, and it really impacts aging services in general moving forward. So again, the problem and our opportunity we're looking to accomplish is really limited aging services within Adams County, and services that are provided are often difficult to navigate. So as Amanda explained, you know, DRCOG does serve a wide range of populations outside of Adams County, including Adams County, but we really have determined, you know, what benefit are we having for, you know, having all the control at DRCOG's level versus having this hybrid approach. And that's really what kind of opened our eyes to saying how, you know, how can we provide some of that more local control and really impact the communities that we serve. You know, we're the subject matter experts in these areas, and we know what our community needs, and really can dig into this with our partners. And when I say that, you know, the county working with all of our municipalities as well. So as the aging population continues to grow, the need to expand services is imminent. While the current area aging and Agency on Aging oversees the Denver metro area, the resources available are spread across a 9-county area like Amanda talked about, with the most of these services in Adams County concentrated in the southern county boundaries. So Adams County Human Services really has the opportunity to provide resources and support to a population that has not been fully served by existing population. So in the coming years, we'll really dive into what gaps in services, new services, and expanded services are needed for seniors locally in our county. So around in August 2023, the State Association of Area Agencies on Aging, so our AAA, along with 63 supporters, including counties, municipalities, statewide older adult advocacy organization, councils of governments, and individual AAAs and local service providers, sent a letter to Governor Polis requesting a $5 million base increase in the state funding for senior services in the 24-25 fiscal year budget, which helps to fund the state's 6 area agencies on aging. So the implementation and the mechanisms to ensure the adequacy of funding over the long term were also included. So that was sent out. That's still not approved, but that just kind of really digs into the shortfall of funding and the need for this moving forward. So state funding for senior services has been flat in nominal years really since 2019, 2020 fiscal year. So as we, you know, all look around us and see how more expensive things are, and the age population growing year after year, that's a really big concern of ours at the county, and really one of the main reasons why we wanted to really intervene and really start to uplift these programs. So adjusting for inflation, state funding for Colorado's AAA has really fallen about 14.5% in real dollars over the last 4 years, while the older population has grown roughly about 12%. So again, next steps and kind of the county's vision moving forward is really to provide no gaps in service delivery. So that might be a question you're sitting there saying, as Adams County uplifts this, how is there going to be a gap in service from, 1 year to the next? Our goal is to not have that happen, and really looking at streamline specific services that impact our residents in Adams County, which obviously, includes the North Glen population. So our Adult Protection Services program has identified that approximately 70% of referrals into that program are ineligible for those services through the Adult Protection Services criteria. But this population often has needs that are not met through other programs, such as housing assistance and transportation needs, which Amanda kind of referenced. So we anticipate serving these clients and many more through our expanded adult and aging services. In reviewing data from the 2020 Community Service Block Grant Community Needs Assessment and the Community Assessment Survey for Older Adults for Adams County, challenges include lack of housing resources, lack of transportation, and added support in obtaining services needed. So really kind of that hand-holding for our aging population and getting them the resources we need. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna focus our initial programming on services that provide housing support, increase transportation options, and provide resources and really application navigation for our aging population. We're really gonna lean into data-informed decision-making at the county as well. Based on the 2022 state demographic survey, it is estimated that 66,000 Coloradans turned 65 in 2021, and another 67,000 are turning 65 in 2022. And again, that was based off of the 2022 state demographic data. So that growth in the 65 and up age group is impacting the labor force with a growing number of retirements, the economy by driving much of the demand for health services and leisure and hospitality, and housing with lower rates of mobility and smaller household sizes. So by far, it was the largest and fastest growing age cohort in the state. Additionally, it is anticipated the increase of those who will turn 65 in the next 10 years will be approximately 33.6%. So again, big need. So creating aging and adult programs by offering direct case management to our older residents and contracting for services to expand to expand to the reach of those served. So again, we propose with the $1 million budget and building services over the first year, we are going to be addressing these needs. So we're going to propose not only with the administrator position, 3 more case manager type positions that will really be able to work with our aging residents to really dig into what that need may be. One resident's need might be housing, another one might be mental health, another one might be transportation. So having those case manager positions is really going to be vital as a kind of, again, the foundation to start building these services moving forward. Aging services will also be in collaboration with Dr. Cog, like I talked about, to apply for grants to support transportation services. Additionally, our community service block grant can support additional services such as homemaker services and food programs as well. So again, at this point, I just want to kind of open it up for discussion and really emphasize, we are at the beginning stages of this at the county. This is something we're visioning, I would consider over the next 4 or 5 years. I just didn't want to come in here and be like, oh, this is something that's going to be in place in January 2024. That's great. We wish we could move that quickly, but we really want to not only take our time with this, but really build it well so it supports all of our municipalities throughout the county and really is successful moving forward for everybody. We know this is a huge need. We're very excited about it. Amanda kind of referenced our transit council that she is a part of, as well as myself and other partners across Adams County. We're really digging into that, and as you heard me reference, transportation is a huge need and something we'll continue to work together with, and it's been a phenomenal journey thus far, working with Amanda and just seeing her leadership within that council as well. So I just want to emphasize that.
Great, thank you. We do have a few questions for you. I will start with Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Mayor. Eddie, thanks for being here and all the work you're doing. I'd recommend, everything that you're mentioning, to have a, website dedicated to it, a newsletter possibly too, because I have a loved one that I assist, and, he's a veteran and, you know, retired fixed income, so I've helped him get Meals on Wheels. I've looked into getting Wi-Fi, cell phone, for his service that he's provided to our country, and even, transportation, but, I know some seniors do have the digital divide, and I know he likes to have, his mailbox is like his way from the world outside, you know, so I think it'd be great to have a lot of these services that you'll be providing, you know, in something printed out, you know, maybe it's like an AARP kind of model.
Yeah.
And, you know, really show what Dr. Cog, that's the Denver Regional Council of Governments. I want to make sure everybody knows that when they hear Dr. Cog, sometimes these acronyms get, you know, a little, not sure what we're really talking about when you hear them. So, yeah, I think that would be really great to provide these on a website too, so you can, you know, click and for everyone who's utilizing the internet, but, you know, also think about a lot of the people that are still love to have, you know, booklet in hand and
Yeah.
be able to, that'd be their reference, and have it available via phone. A lot of stuff is over the internet. And, yeah, I just, you know, I've you know, dealt with a lot of this stuff, and I can just see a lot of the roadblocks that happen sometimes. And I want to make sure that we're really providing the easiest way for seniors to opt into a lot of these programs, because they're there, and I feel like that will really help with people with raising rents and everything. And you know, if any time you can cut a cost or have somebody you know, help them get to where they need to go, or meals, you know, so that's something that I think that having it on both internet and in hand would be a great step forward. And I'd like to, you know, work with you and the county manager too, you know. I saw that Councilmember Julie Duran-Mullica really spearheaded this a couple years ago, and I know I'd like to be one of those people that helps you out too.
I appreciate that, and I just will emphasize, you know, we worked, like I referenced in my presentation, and we're working closely with Dr. Cog. They were invited to the table with us this evening. They weren't able to make it, and they wanted to pass along their apologies for that, but they said they are open to any type of follow-up or answer any questions. So I do want to loop back around and, you know, let them know if any questions, any input. But if there's any questions specifically for those could really funnel through Amanda or myself or Heather, and we would love to kind of loop back around. But again, we'll take any input we could take at this point as we start building these. But as many of you know, we have a lot of other services in Human Services that really could collaborate. And as you were talking, it really made me think, you know, we have our Veteran Services Office right in our Human Services Center, as well as our Community Partner Network that's really in our building as well. So we really lean on those relationships to meet the needs of whatever residents, you know, physically in front of us, virtually, whatever the case may be, to try to meet that need. So that's really good feedback. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
Good clarification on Dr. Cox.
Yeah.
Councilmember Condo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I actually represent the city on Dr. Cog, so I have a couple questions. First of all, at the October 18th meeting, Jayla Sanchez Warren was talking about kind of this fiscal cliff that you just hit upon. So I'm trying to just square in my head, where are you going to find $1 million? Is that going to be out of Adams County taxpayer dollars? I mean, it sounds like if there's going to be a shortage of money to support even Dr. Cog's area agency on aging, it's almost like you've got shrinking resources. So I'm just trying to figure that out, because I think that you have this, if you will, demands that are pulling you in different directions, right? Dr. Cog obviously is trying to treat this 13-county region, but yet Adams County wants to be very specialized and focused on Adams County. And it seems like it's going to be a food fight for limited dollars. Help me understand that.
So the $1 million that I referenced, and then the ongoing, will be through the county's budget process out of our general fund. So that is as an ask from our board, and they contribute. They verified that they will contribute that funding out of our general fund. So you are absolutely correct, out of taxpayer dollars, to really dig into that, as well as still working with DRCOG and for us being able to go after some of those grants. So that's why this hybrid model was kind of the most attractive for us. We weren't taking all of control and having to contribute all of that money to the AAA. It really will be still collaboration with DRCOG and the county. So it'll be a combination of funding instead of just the AAA Title III funding that DRCOG works under. We'll be able to have a combination where the county is actually contributing part of that, and then we're still going after grants with DRCOG as well. So I still think it's going to be a lot of work. You know, it's going to be a collaboration effort. You know, that's something that we value at the county very much, working with our partners, whether it be at the city level or with DRCOG at the, or at the state level. So it's something we'll have to manage and look at, but it was something that our board and our county manager really wanted to dive into and prioritize as we move forward and as we kind of look at the increased need for this particular service population. So to answer your question, that will be a combination of both the AAA funding and county dollars, county general fund dollars that will be contributed directly from taxpayer dollars.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm glad that Adams County is willing to invest and put money into that. My follow-up question, if you'll indulge me, is my mother actually used the senior hub as we were going into pandemic, and then on March of 2021 or 22, they suspended services. And the website still shows that your services are suspended. Is the senior hub running today?
From my understanding, yes. So we've worked with them in many different areas. More recently, they have applied for an ARPA grant that we had out for food delivery. So they do have an active ARPA grant with that. I know that they just got a new CEO. I haven't had a chance to meet in person yet, but I know that that's something that they're still working within and still operating. So, I mean, I can confirm that and loop back around, but from my understanding, they are still running.
I will tell you from firsthand experience, it's a great service. The unfortunate thing is it's located by Waterworld in Federal Heights, and that's on the far western boundary of Adams County. And so I'm just thinking to myself, how do you figure out how to reach all of the rest of Adams County when, say, for example, Bennett is a 45-minute drive away just to get to the midpoint of Adams County?
Yeah. And go ahead.
Well, I do believe we have a location, or at least maybe the Meals on Wheels location.
Well, I was
Amanda, do you
referring to
wanna-
the senior hub.
The senior hub runs that too. Do you want to, join us and add to that? No, I appreciate it.
The senior hub moved, so they are no longer in Federal Heights.
Oh, they aren't?
They are,
Okay.
their offices are located behind Best Buy in the Ramos
Yeah, in the
building.
Ramos Law
So they
Gotcha.
are in North Glen. And they
Okay.
are operational. They are our Meals on Wheels provider. They have an emergency food pantry, and they do a few other things for the area residents, so.
Okay, wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
after my mom passed, obviously, I didn't follow
Oh,
what
yeah.
happened to
It's,
senior hub,
It's
but
actually really amazing, and they always invite council members to volunteer, typically in March, but I know we can volunteer anytime, but that is when they do kind of an engagement opportunity, and I've helped a couple of times. I love it, the highlight.
well, first of all, I'm glad that you're operational again,
Yeah.
and somehow, as my esteemed colleague here to my right, Councilmember Jaramillo, just got to figure out how to get that word out there.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Councilmember Goff?
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you. This is really informative. It's good to know, what could be coming soon. The question I had was, will these services, like you're saying, hiring even more case managers, are they going to be in the Human Services building? Will they be in different places throughout Adams County? I mean, where would a North Glen senior resident go?
I think that's still to be determined, but they will be under our Human Services umbrella, reporting up through the Aging and Adult Administrator. But we do have hybrid schedules right now and case managers that are in the field and in the office.
Oh,
So
in the
that's,
field, okay.
that's still to be determined, but I could see us at a point where we're doing some other services outside of our senior services right now, where we're in the community, so we're going to where the, you know, our residents that are needing the services are living and really accessing them. So again, we're at the very beginning stages, but I could see us where we start to digging into what the need is and us being in different parts in our community. I know I heard Strasburg and Bennett, that's something that we're going into that community because it's, you know, it's an hour drive, especially in the winter,
Yeah.
even longer, to get to our human services building. So the county's looking at expanded services, but we also have our outreach services that are, you know, in the community and in various places throughout the county. And I could see this as a benefit for our seniors if we do that same model.
Yeah, I was just going to point out that the transportation is going to be a difficulty, and Adams County is very large geographically, so it would be nice if it was the human service building, 'cause it's kind of close to us, but
Yeah.
it's good to hear that you've got plans for that. Thank you.
Councilmember Long?
Good evening, Mr. Valdez. My question runs to the State Department of Social Services and Medicaid funding and possibly Medicare funding. I didn't hear you mention the state support, so can you perhaps enlighten me a little bit so I have a better understanding as to the relationships you have with the state office?
Yeah, so we work very closely with our state departments on various aspects, but with this particular approach, it really is going to be at the county level, working with our communities. The state has not came on board and said they're going to contribute any type of funding to this yet, but I could see as we really start to dig into this and show the benefits of that, where that might be the case. Right now, there's not a direct allocation like you would see in, you know, child welfare or in TANF or something of that nature, where it's contributed at the state level. But I think that, you know, as we look to the future, that might be where we're headed. But right now, that's not built into the budget at the state level. But I think what we'd have to do is show the need first. You know, you and I could sit here and say, yeah, there's a need. But right now, there's not a contributing factor from, you know, our state offices outside of, you know, our AAAs at this point.
I'm trying to get my head around this. State Department of Social Services has the responsibility of taking care of seniors, Medicaid, and many folks find their way into independent living as well as assisted living and then into skilled nursing facilities. As well, there are other programs out there that provide those kinds of programming. So correct me if I'm wrong, but you're making the statement that we're falling short in terms of taking care of our seniors and navigating through the system outside of these kinds of services.
Correct. Yeah, and then as we start digging into what we need as far as the services, we haven't gotten that far in our programming yet. We'll really start to determine, okay, do we really want to concentrate on housing or food insecurity? But you're right, you know, there's no denying that there's a shortfall right now and something that we got to dig into.
So the priority I see was to say that we're going to support seniors needing to enable seniors to age in place. So that means they get to stay in their homes.
Yes,
And what you're sharing with us is that the Medicaid folks, the state services, do not step up and really guide and help folks like they might. That this program would then be a sub-plant coming in to take over that responsibility because they're, with all due respect, the state's falling short. Is that a fair statement to make?
I think it is, ideally. And again, you know, as we start developing these programs, that's really going to start molding our programs. But I think that's an accurate statement. I think that's something we want to see seniors stay in their homes and be successful in that and be able to support themselves and stay in somewhere they're safe and, you know, they're comfortable. But at the same rate, I know that there's other avenues of living as well. But I think that's a fair statement where we're falling short, and that's where the county is really trying to step up and saying, where can we supplement some of these services to meet the needs of our seniors in our communities?
So Dr. Cog is taking this on with all the local governments in the counties because the state has not been responsive to the needs.
I'd say that's pretty accurate, yeah.
Have you gone to the private sector? And again, yes, I have to confess here, in another lifetime, I was a licensed nursing home administrator. So I had to work with a lot of people at the Department of Social Services. We had a physician program as well called GeriMed that took care of basic seniors' healthcare needs in tracking and things. I'm kind of at a loss as to how this can really work, to be honest. I'm hoping there would be more of a consideration working not only with the Medicaid folks at the state level, but also with the veterans. Because I know that's another big concern that we have with veterans care, and what they're doing is that population ages as well. So you've got a real assignment here to really task to go forward with it.
I think it's important that I add a bit of context in answering your question, Councilmember Long, because I don't want to set Eddie up for solving this problem. The county has this horizon of goals. When you're talking Social Security and Medicaid, those are federally funded systems administered by the state that are very complex and I think are going to require advocacy by cities, DRCOG, the governor, state officials, to be funded at a greater level than what the county is going to be able to do. So I think Eddie mentioned that the county's been sending support letters and really trying to draw and elevate the issue to state lawmakers. But I would say, from my perspective as manager, that specific issue that you're bringing up is not going to be solved with the additional couple $1 million that the county's bringing to the table on an annual basis in the out years. That's gonna require a whole different level of collaboration and willingness at the state to increase funding and to advocate ultimately at the federal level. So I think that's a good comment to hold on to, and we'll take note of as part of this overall discussion, but I just didn't want you to walk away with council thinking you're gonna solve that one, because you're not gonna solve that one on your own.
Well, the statement, with all due respect, the state, as I understand it, matches 50% with the feds whenever they give us funds for Medicaid, Department of Social Services. And so, yes, it's federal and the state levels, but now you're sharing with us that the state isn't doing their job. So now we have to find money ourselves at the county level to shore up their shortfalls, for their lack of programming.
So I'm not saying that the state's not doing their job. I'm responding to, can the state do more? Yes, probably. Is it going to be fixed with the county putting forward $1 million, $2 million more? There's a lot of need across the board, so that's part of why we're having this discussion tonight. And a couple slides forward I'll touch on, there's probably more that the city of North Clint can do to advocate on a legislative level. So tonight's conversation, we can always do a subset on Social Security, Medicaid. I'm not an expert in it. I know enough that what Eddie is talking about is related but separate.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you so much for being here, Eddie. I really appreciate this step up, I guess, or stepping up. This is something that myself and former Councilmember Jenny Wilford brought up along with Julie a few years ago. So it's nice to see that across a couple of years now something is actually happening. This all started, this request, because we got a couple of very serious concerns from some of our aging residents, and most of it revolved around not being able to find resources quickly enough, or having difficulty in navigating the system. Hey, try, the Senior Hub, try care.com, try this. And for elderly people, that's very difficult, especially if they're facing an emergency, which is basically what was happening here. So I think, and this, I guess, kind of touches on what Councilmember Jaramillo was talking about, there needs to be an easier way for our seniors to navigate and find those, more community-based resources easily, because that was the concern that they had. And then locally, in terms of gaps, and this may be coming up when we talk about what the city can do, a lot of issues are just, being able to age in place, but yes, and that involves things like code enforcement, code compliance, not being able to take care of their yards or things of that nature. I know that our crisis response program director, Jessica Pulse, is now working with some residents when that happens. And that's really great to also see that that's happened in the last couple of years, but I know there's still a gap. The waiting lists for a lot of these things, there's a lot out there, as Amanda was pointing out, there's this and there's that. But what I've heard is the waiting lists are so long, or yes, it's there, but they can't get it. They can't get the help that they need in a timely fashion, and sometimes time is crucial for our seniors. So I really hope that, with that $1 million, that helps kind of pool more of a centralized place so seniors can have, direct access. Okay, well, this is, the next connection that you need. So that's one piece. Other things like snow, even simple things like shoveling your snow. We have snowstormers, and I tried to help a resident last year, and there were more than 30 people on the waiting list. And I didn't have to do this, but I physically called different snow shovelers private, because she's like, I will pay them. I just can't get anyone, no family to help that can, step in, and a waiting list of 30 people. So there's a need for things like that. And I'm hoping that somehow some of, maybe that funding can even trickle in on a local level, since we see those people up front. So I'm just curious to know how is there a plan for more of that,
I think-
local connection from the county to us as the city?
I think that's a great idea. I know there hasn't been any talks of that at this point, but again, all great feedback, something, I could take back to our Board of County Commissioners, to our leadership at the county level, and saying, this is what we're hearing from our cities. This is what we're needing. Like I said, we are all in agreement that there is not enough services and the population continues to grow. And again, we are just not at that point yet to say this is what it's gonna look like. I wish I had that. But that's all great input as we start developing this over the course of the next several years. We'll continue to get feedback, and I think it's important to listen not only to our community's voice, so our aging population, what do you need? What's out there that you see gaps in, but also coming back and talking to our cities on what you guys are seeing, because a lot of times you guys, again, are the boots on the ground saying, this is what we're seeing in our communities, this is what we need, and if we had this amount of dollars or we had this resource, we could really make an impact. So I think it's still a little premature in my estimation, but I think that's the things that we're gonna continue to dive into and lean into our relationships with you moving forward to see how we could build a program that's gonna be sustainable and achievable for our residents.
Yeah, that's great. And even one of the requests was, even if we could go to one site that had a list of caregivers, for example. And the other issue was the cost of caregivers. And yes, the state it's difficult as well, but I know there's supposed to be some money in the infrastructure plan to expand Medicaid. And again, I'm not an expert on that as well, but who knows how that's gonna go. The other thing is, I know I had one more thing, and I feel like it's left my brain right now. Transportation, which is in here as well, but cost of care. There's one more thing that is slipping my brain right now. I just got back from a trip this morning, so I'm a little jet lagged again. So I'll leave it at that, and if I remember, I'll just bring it up again. How's that? Oh, I know, actually. It was something that I noticed on my trip in New York. They have signs everywhere that the state actually offers a paid program for friends and family to take care of elderly to age in place. And it was something like $17 to $24 an hour. I assume it's to supplement maybe a job that somebody would, have to have. And this way they can, their job would be to take care of. I just thought it was a very unique way. And it's New York City, so it's a huge, very dense population. But just throwing that out there, if there's creative ways to solve problems with lack of caregivers.
Yeah,
That's what I was trying to remember.
Those are also great suggestions, like I said, and, you know, this, in my mind, this is not the last time we'll come and discuss this with you. This is really about, this is what our ideas are moving forward. So I'm excited about coming back and be able to talk to you about, okay, we're now, you know, almost at the end of 2024, and this is what we accomplished over the last year. This is what we're digging into. So again, you know, I'm excited about the future, but again, we are at our beginning stages with this programming. So, but all great input, things that I'll take back to our team and really consider as we start to develop these programs moving forward.
Thank you very much, Eddie.
Thank you, Steph. Okay. And thank you for being here. I think this was, I mean, it was well stated, well presented, very honest in the timeline. So we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. So we've talked a little bit from kind of the federal level down to the state, regional, county, and then now to the city. What are we providing here at a local level to our senior residents? I have Kate Fisher, our senior center coordinator, here with me today as well. So if any specific questions come up, I know she would be happy to answer those. But in our senior center, we really serve our community members who are able to leave their homes, or generally living independently or semi-independently, and able to come into the center. We're meeting a lot of social emotional needs, those physical fitness, companionship, lots of companionship happening between our community members and staff, learning for enjoyment, and resource and referral. We are not typically offering that case management service that Eddie referred to, and that we talked about at DRCOG, right? The case management that may be hard to access now at a regional level, that hopefully we'll be able to get much better access to at a county level, even though the county is big, still sounds so much more achievable at a county level than it does when we're talking about that whole Denver metro region. And being able to provide that service for someone who has a greater level of need. But what Kate is able to offer, I say Kate, we also have Kyle, who's in our senior center, but what they're really able to offer are those direct one-on-one services for individuals who have that immediate in-the-moment need, right? It's not necessarily, how do I find housing? Those they're referring out. They're having to find those resources through DRCOG and sending that referral out to where those case management services may exist. But I know just this morning, Kate came over to ask me a question, and in her hand was a LEAP application that she had just helped somebody fill out and was dropping it right in the mail for them. So had provided that one-on-one assistance to get somebody from, hey, I need this help, how do I apply? Walked through the process with them and dropped the application right in the mail. Or I need to change the name of my spouse who is deceased on a cable bill. How do I do it? And sitting through and making that phone call and getting somebody through that process. Those types of services are things Kate is amazing at and does every single day, I'm pretty sure. So those are the types of resource and referral services we're really able to provide on a one-on-one basis in the senior center. Along with really just hearing what our residents are needing in that social environment, and what they're looking for in a senior center. And I think staff does a really great job of adapting and changing and coming up with programs and activities that are meeting the needs of our community members that are coming in and visiting that center on a daily basis. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Heather to talk a little more about the local policy that can impact how we're proceeding forward.
Thanks, Amanda. This slide isn't necessarily intended to be a catch-all. I've already made some notes on things I could have put on this slide. But I wanted to elevate some of the great work that we're doing at the local level. across the spectrum, housing in particular, their DBG Properties has their housing facility that has gone vertical and is set to open Q1 of 2024 at Carl's Farm. This is 164 units, senior housing, that is 60% AMI, or another way of saying it is 40% below market rate. Headwaters has recently received their approvals. Now, this property is 172 units. It's market rate, so a different housing option, but an option that's providing, some diversity to our housing stock here in North Glen. So I think efforts will continue to move forward on the housing front as developers are interested in North Glen, in particular from an infill redevelopment perspective. And I think the comprehensive plan update really captures that focus through the recent updates made to that plan. I touched on this just a minute ago. The legislative committee, I think, really has an opportunity moving forward to advocate more for, I think we've done a great job at this, but I think there's going to be more opportunity not only at the state level, but also the federal level. And so as I'm working on updating the legislative policy guide, I'm going to make sure we put some language in that guide to speak to really furthering the city's advocacy efforts for our senior population. Somewhat going hand in hand with that, that you don't see on this slide, is next year we're going to embark in the development of a 5-year strategic plan update. And so this is really going to be an opportunity to engage seniors who are a key stakeholder in our community, and really not only parallel the efforts that the county's taking in terms of their role in this hybrid model, but also for us to capture what are we hearing from our seniors, and we can elevate that to Eddie and his staff and make sure that that information is shared. We do have the CDBG grant program, funding program. This is a program that comes through the federal government. Community Block Grant Funding is what it stands for. We are not an entitlement city, so our funding of $250,000 comes through Adams County, and council past policy decisions have allocated that funding for the Adams County Minor Home Repair Program, which is an option for low-income individuals to utilize that program, including seniors. We have UDO land use regulations here. Certainly Brooke is in the audience and can help touch on any specifics related to land use. But with our UDO update, and then again the comprehensive plan update, I think we've heard a great deal of information and feedback from our senior population in terms of the need to do more and having that diversification of housing and enabling, empowering seniors to be able to age in place. And I think a bullet point that I would put on this slide, if I were to edit it real time, would be a good neighbor. I think we do have many programs such as the shoveling snowstormers program, as well as when we highlight and recognize neighbors throughout the community, residents doing good work. I think it's pretty common that we hear about residents being good neighbors to their elderly neighbors, the seniors that are aging in place in their homes. And I think, regardless of what we do from a policy perspective, nothing replaces the power of connection at that community level and, residents stepping up and helping their neighbors. So for discussion, we've added these 2 prompts. We've had a little bit of conversation around gaps that you've shared in terms of funding, access to resources. So this is really intended to be an open conversation to provide Amanda, Eddie, and I with any direction that you have in terms of where you'd like to go next. In the strategic plan, there was identified the need, the desire to do an aging needs survey. That has not yet been done. That's something we can still do in the future that would be very specific to North Glen. Because the CASOA report for Adams County was done in 2022, I would not recommend doing that survey unless it's a couple years out at least. Let's get this work with the county underway and see what else we can be doing, get our strategic planning efforts underway, and then really refocus if you want to do that in the future. A survey like that will probably easily cost the city $40,000+ to administer. It's very similar to a resident survey that we've done in the past. So certainly happy to hear feedback on that and answer any questions.
Councilmember Jaramillo.
Thank you, Mayor. I looked up the senior hub, and it mostly does address just food needs and some adult day services. I would just imagine when Adams County, gets online with everything, having everything kind of looking at all aspects of life, including healthcare, and I just noticed that when I went on their senior hub, I was there wasn't too many services that were really provided on there, and I think that it'd be good to be able to have all the services, like when Adams County gets on there, go here, go there, and have that collaboration. Because I don't see anything on here that really directs me towards transportation, as we mentioned, or anything like that. Oh, well, it has bullet points where it talks about housing and transportation, but it doesn't really have any links or numbers, so.
Yeah. So if you keep in mind, if you go back to that slide, it was page 8 in the packet, that aging network. And on that right side where there was that whole list of services, and lots of those are contractors. So the Senior Hub is an example of one of the nonprofits. The Senior Hub as a nonprofit, their programs are funded by lots of different sources. So one of those sources is like Meals on Wheels. Part of their funding, I think it's about 35%, is Title III funding. And so they're not necessarily just, how do I say it? They're not the sole service provider, right? So they're one of many that are in the network.
Right.
And they're also not the only service provider for nutrition services or the only service provider for transportation. So the network is always gonna be made up by a lot of different providers. Hopefully by Adams County being able to serve as the hybrid AAA and bringing that more local, it helps get the communication a little more local and bring those services to our community members in a way that they're a little more direct. And I'll use the Transit Policy Council as an example. So that was brought under local control about 20 years ago. And it's changed a bit during the pandemic, and so we're kind of working through since the pandemic kind of what that looks like. So currently that contract provider is through VIA. But I'll kind of look back at what it looked like back in the early portion of that. And when bringing that under local control, rather than DRCOG providing that on a regional level and the service looking the same throughout the entire 8-county region, Adams County took that local control. And so those dollars, through a grant, just like Eddie was talking about, instead of DRCOG managing the whole pot of dollars and managing all of the service contracts and divvying those out, Adams County applied for the dollars for all of those years. The dollars came to Adams County, and then Adams County managed one contract for lots of years to provide all of the transit in Adams County under a single contract. So that let us message that a little differently, right? That all of those transit dollars went through the Senior Resource Center, SRC, under the Transit Policy Council, each of us as cities having a seat on that council and getting to manage how that transit looked. And so I would use that as an example of how that local control can help manage the messaging as they look towards the hybrid AAA and managing the messaging for services on a wider scale. So when you look at what the Senior Hub's website is, that may not change what the Senior Hub's website is. It just may change how the county messages
Right.
what services they're providing through the hybrid AAA.
Yeah, okay.
Does that
makes sense.
sort of help?
That does, yeah. I'm saying if we could just bring that all
Okay.
in and make sure it's like a one-stop shop.
But the county will never get to control what a nonprofit says they're offering.
Okay. Okay. Another question I have is what's the timeline for Carl's Farm, the apartments?
I will
there?
let Brooke answer.
It's Q 2024.
Yeah, I actually just spoke with Eric Rodell, he said. I actually just spoke with the developer the other day on this, and he is anticipating March of this next year for finishing up that project.
Okay, great. And will Alexin on Community Center and Huron, will they have, they won't, okay, I see Brooke.
No
Shaking
senior,
his head.
as, that's just market rate
Okay,
apartments.
okay, thank you.
Councilmember Condo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So, gaps in service, and this is probably a very generic list, so it could be for Eddie, it could be for Kate. I just remember one time that Nick expressed a desire to have a van that would have that wheelchair ramp, to be able to move maybe certain of our senior citizens who are wheelchair bound. Don't know if that's a city or a county thing, but again, I'm the spirit of unmet needs.
Can I summarize? I'm hearing a transportation,
Transportation mechanism that can move wheelchair-bound people.
okay. at the
And I'm not
local
talking
level.
about the Mondo-sized huge minibus.
Accessoride? Is that in addition to that?
No. Well, what Nick was saying was not quite the RTD senior Accessoride, but something a little bit smaller scale.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Do you
I
know if
guess.
he was
I'm-
referring to city-sponsored activities or to like medical
Well,
appointments
that's
and
why,
other?
well, yeah, medical appointments,
Great.
shopping, that sort of stuff.
Perfect. We do have, so that program is available through the A-Lift program. And they do
Right.
have accessible vehicles and they offer door-through-door services.
Okay.
And those
What I
are-
recall Nick saying was that A-Lift isn't terribly responsive, and he was hoping that the city would be able to provide an
So
option.
So Eddie can talk about that a little, or can certainly respond. That is something that's being worked through with the contractor. VIA is the contractor, and is able to provide door-through-door services. The city is already contributing to that, as are the counties, and they do provide accessible service.
Great.
And if anyone is not receiving
I'm the messenger
service-
for Nick. So,
But if
since he's
if
not
people
here.
are not receiving service, because the feedback we're receiving from the contractor is that they have a relatively low turn down rate. So if people are getting turned down for a ride, they should let us know. They can let city staff know and we can follow up on that. Because if they're getting turned down for rides and they're not responsive, please tell us. We would like to follow up.
I will convey that to Nick. For me personally, I think it would be nice to have, again, this is city or county, maybe it's some sort of service like a home safety assessment for fall risk or accessibility. And maybe that's also part of the construction funds that you provide for allowing residents to live in place. And then finally, a different kind of assessment, maybe it's more of a home finance, estate planning, or tax assistance. I know we used to provide some sort of tax filing assistance. It didn't happen last year in 2022. But those sort of things, again, you asked me, what are the gaps in services, and those are things that just popped in my head.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Councilmember
absolutely.
Goff?
I just wanted to jump in real quick.
Okay.
The county is providing the tax services at multiple locations across the county. Starting at the beginning of 2024, the Human Services Center will be one of them. That's going to be managed by our health department, actually, digging into that. So that will be something that will communicate out on multiple levels as far as social media and various places. But we will have that for our residents this year at multiple locations. But more closely to North Glen would be our Human Services Center.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to answer one of the questions that was asked or brought up, I don't know that North Glen needs to do their own study, for at least for a couple of years. Because when I went through the Adams County report, nothing surprised me. I'm sure that holds pretty closely to what our own residents would be saying. 49% of Adams County seniors reported housing needs. And I think, I don't know how much we can do, we're doing some. But one of the things that occurred to me, and this actually happened in our home a few years ago, is that the older homes in North Glen, doorways are not wide enough for a wheelchair, or even, like if you had like some kind of a walker, many of them, they're just older, narrower doorways. And we paid to have a couple of doorways widened in our house, but I'm sure a lot of people wouldn't even be able to afford that. But I hope that that's somehow included in one of these programs that we have for home improvement, whatever. And I know, and it's not always, maybe, and that brings me to the other thing, is that just maybe communication needs to go out more often or in some different ways. I know there are programs to put up temporary ramps outside the house if people need them. I've seen that in our neighborhood even. But I don't know that everybody knows, even knows what's out there. So again, some kind of central, I think of webpage, but I know that's not going to work for everybody, but some way to find, what all the different options are out there for people. So the housing and then mobility needs and the transportation seemed to come out pretty good on the Adams County one, but I would say that might work for people who are, fully able to drive and have a car that's reliable and all that. So more options for people who don't have their own vehicle or are not able to drive. And it looks like you're ready to say something.
Yeah.
Just to piggyback on some of the comments you made, Councilmember, is we have the minor home repair program. We are regularly promoting that. What we are seeing, and we're trying to get deeper into the data, and if you look on the last page of the packet, that's our ACS data that shows the trend over where we are with those, with the senior population and where they break out in terms of their stressors of socioeconomic aspects. But what we're seeing is that the minor home repair program is not being widely utilized like it once was. And what we believe is happening is that our LMI senior population, the low to moderate income that qualify for CDBG, don't reside in homes anymore. And what we are beginning to see is a trend where we're seeing less and less utilization because there aren't people who are of a senior age that are still in their homes who qualify for the program. And I think through the last two housing studies that we've done, the one thing that we did is back in 2018 study is in a 10-year period, we'd seen over 50% of all single-family homes transact. And so what I think is happening here, and also with the 2020 data versus the 2017 data, our census tracts have completely just turned all over the place in terms of where our aging population. I think it was the south part of Ward 2 was one of the highest concentrations of LMI population in single family, and now it's completely flipped. It's not the case anymore.
I did notice in the Adams County report too that a much larger percentage of seniors are renting than that really surprised me.
Yeah.
So, and I do see that as well, that people age out of their home and somebody buys it and then it's a rent.
And so to your question about, yes, minor home repair does do doors, they
Okay.
do ADA ramps, grab bars for bathrooms, upgrades to make things more accessible. But what we're seeing is that we're just not getting the utilization of the program because there aren't enough people who are qualified. And what we believe the data is starting to lean toward is that our LMI population is in multifamily now, more so than it was, say, even 5 years ago. But I can tell you, when I first started here back in 2012, I mean, half the city was 51% LMI, and the other half of the city was 49% LMI on the two main census tracts of North Glen, and that's not even close anymore to where we are today. So we are seeing that transformation happen.
I think too, that as you're aging and you are wanting to maybe downsize, there aren't options in North Glen really to do, unless you're going to rent.
Right.
And so then that's where, another concern.
And I think it's not just with Adams County, it's region-wide, and I think when we come back to but Senate Bill 213 and all these other initiatives, none of that was really addressing any of those concerns, and that's what's problematic is, where the direction has been going isn't really getting to the more accessible housing aspect. And then one other quick comment on transportation. When we talk about that first and last mile service, that's essentially what I'm hearing. The Call-and-Ride program is probably one of the strongest resources we have right now. And I do want to point out that we recently were asked to help sponsor the Call-and-Ride program from the 120th station up to 144th for the Amazon, and our contribution was like $2,000. So I asked Smart Commute, what does that one service cost RTD to operate? It's $1 million. It's over $1 million a year. And that's just a couple of buses, the short buses, not big buses, to provide the vehicles, the staff, the insurance, and the subsidized service. So I would suggest that while that's clearly a gap that we have as first and last mile, it is also probably one of the more pricier ones to solve for. And I think that with what RTD is trying to do, with doing these sub-regional resource efforts of trying to figure out how do we do this, it has been a clear message for many years that first and last mile is really what inner suburban ring suburbs in the North Metro area really need, and that these peak hour transit services that are fully underutilized, that really don't get to people where they need to be, is not what's the priority. But you're talking about one of the largest transit services in the entire western United States, and they serve so many masters, it's a real challenge for them to get to this kind of base level of understanding and operation.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I do think having that centralized resource center is definitely important in terms of, maybe there's not as many who need the minor home repair, but maybe they just don't know. For example, this resident that sent this request 2 years ago sent it via like a mailed letter. So that just goes to show you, they use different avenues to get information, old school, and sometimes it's hard for them. But, and I have a couple of questions here, and one is actually from Councilmember Burns, and it'll be probably for Kate. As the liaison to the NSO, the North Glen Senior Organization, I just want to give a shout out to you and to the entire NSO, because I see firsthand during the meetings how incredible you all are in really making sure our seniors stay active and healthy. Mental health is extremely important for seniors, as they become less able to kind of do things autonomously like they used to. And also just building that culture in that community, right? It's like a second family, so I see that. But the question from Megan was, she wanted to know, because she was looking and she said she had a hard time finding it, what type of fun activities and things does the senior center do, which I know a lot. I know it's a lot. You guys do so much to keep the seniors active. That was her question, because she's feeding a baby.
Okay. So we try to do a lot across various areas. Even our fitness stuff is a fun social activity. If you've seen people even that play pickleball, they come and there's a lot of chatting. We have Tai Chi, they take a break, they chat for 10 minutes in between. Our Silver Sneakers classes, they are very, very social, all the ladies in the pool. So that's a huge, fun, social thing that they do. We do bingo and bridge and pinochle and gaming with
Crokinole.
the chief. We're gonna play crokinole tomorrow. So Mexican train, dominoes, mahjong. So a lot of opportunities to come and play games and be social. We try to do a lot of different fun.
Birthdays.
Yeah, we have a birthday party
party.
once a month. It's very social. We have live entertainment and cake and ice cream. Some of our festive Friday stuff can get kind of silly. We do pig races, we do lots of potlucks. We've done Hootie Hoo Day, where they come and yell at winter to go away in February, which is super fun. We've done tie-dye events. We have a sip and paint class that we're doing monthly. We have a book club. Some people just come in and enjoy the library that we have and take books and take them out. The lounge is open for people to come in and just socialize without any type of formalized activities. We do some excursions, like the picture, the second one over from the left is at the Railroad Museum. And I think the question about the van was actually one of our older gentlemen cornered council member Walker, and he wants a little bus that's easier to get in and out of. So if you've ever gotten in the van, it's great, it's new. If you have mobility issues, if you're using a walker, it's a little harder to get in and out of. So I know, because he told me after the fact that he cornered his councilman and said he wanted a bus. So we try to do a lot of different things, educational stuff. We have a local attorney coming tomorrow to talk about estate planning, so that's some of the educational stuff. We've done classes on a matter of balance and diabetes education, nutrition, so we try to do a little bit of a lot of things. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, and she actually asked about like senior theater, senior-specific theater. I know besides that, excursion-wise, there's trips planned to different states and other things that is also a part of.
The senior organization does kind of sponsor 2 trips a year. So they just got back from Mackinac Island in Michigan. These are coach trips, so they do take a bus from here, lots of different stops on the way. So they can be, they're more cost efficient. I think it was a 9-day trip, and it covered transportation, hotel, breakfast, most dinners, and all the different side trips, and it was less than $1,000 a person. So the next one is scheduled for Savannah, Georgia in the spring. So they typically do a spring and a fall trip, but that's something that the senior organization sponsors.
So many great things. And then for senior theater, I know Michael's always there giving information on all the different
Yeah.
events.
So we do partner with our theater on a couple of different things. The Travel Film Series is a narrated film, so the filmmaker is actually there talking about the film that's shown in the theater. And then they have the option to stay for lunch, which is going to be a themed lunch. So, we did Japan and we had Japanese food. We did, the last one was Egypt, which is kind of challenging to do Egyptian food in the middle of Colorado. But we try to do a fun thing like that. The other thing that we've done a lot is the Northland Youth Theater. So they have a show opening on Friday, Newsies, and we take one of the matinees and we offer a dinner theater option for that as well. It's kind of great for the kids because they get to interact with the seniors. They actually help serve. So I tell them I'm training them for Boulder's Dinner Theater. So we get a good crowd that comes out for that. And then this Saturday is Veterans Day, so we'll be doing our annual Veterans Day ceremony and lunch on Saturday as well.
Thank you, Kate. I get to witness and see all that every third Monday of the month during the meetings, but a lot of our residents don't know just how many things and activities we have for our seniors. So thank you for that. 'Cause I know you have a large part in that. And then for my own question, that's the only question I have for you. Thank you. Along the lines of safety, if we're talking about gaps, one of the concerns that a resident brought was if they're a senior caregiver of another senior caregiver, there's no centralized forms for them to have in their home in case of an emergency. So if somebody shows up at their door, a list of medications, where to find different things that are important in case somebody needs to go be transported to the hospital. Okay,
There
great.
actually is.
Oh,
It's
great.
something that is done through the North Metro Fire. It's called File of Life. And we have them at the senior center, and North Metro has given them out on several different occasions. It's a little red vinyl pouch that has a magnet on the back, and they could slip in contact information, emergency contact people, medications, allergies, all of that. It used to be called Vial of Life, and it looked like it was a pill container, and you're supposed to keep it in your refrigerator, but I don't know if it was my refrigerator, you'd probably never find it, so bright red, it says File of Life on it, they put it right on the refrigerator, and I know North Metro knows to look for that if they enter a home, and it can be easily updated, but that is something that is in place through North Metro.
So they can even add something in there, like you can find this in a certain spot, because I think that's what she was concerned about, was if something happens to me and I call, or, someone's called, will they know where to find everything? And I think there's that communication piece, because I have seen that, I think it was when we were promoting Code Red, they were giving out those files.
Yeah.
So things like that, even maybe mailing them to residents, maybe that's a county thing, I don't know. But it's just something to keep at the top of the mind, that maybe not all residents are aware, that they can have something like that, or where, they're not sure where to put it, they have all these questions and concerns, so.
Sure. Yeah, I would say definitely put them in contact with us or North Metro Fire, and we could get them one if anybody asks. But I think since North Metro is usually a first responder, they're going to be one of the first people in. And I don't. Yeah, the
Oh,
other
yeah,
program that
lockbox.
we do have, that our police department does, is our lockbox program, which holds, if you guys don't know what that is, basically it looks like a box that a realtor would use, but they don't put it on the front door. They would kind of tuck it off onto the side. Keys are kept in it, so if somebody, say, had a fall and they could get to the phone, they can't get to the front door to unlock it. If you call 911, they're going to get in. So this enables them to get in without busting down a door or something. So AdCom has the code and knows where the lockbox is. Nobody else does. So if 911 is called and they have to respond, they could tell the first responder, hey, this resident has a lockbox, here's where it's at, here's the code. They get in, get the key, gain access to the home, so they could help them without breaking down the door, basically.
That's really great information. And did they get those little life, I've fallen and I can't get up?
That's a
necklaces?
whole different
a whole
thing.
different-
The life alert or
Yeah.
programs, yeah.
Okay.
So,
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Long?
Hello. On page 275 of the report, it shows that we have just under 4,000 seniors in 2021. I don't know if that number's changed in the last 2 years or not, but as I look back 11 years, it was a similar number. We had 3,400 in 2010. Now we're up to just under 4,000. I guess my question is, how many folks of that 4,000 senior population are active in our senior center?
I mean, currently, our North Glen Senior Organization has about 500 members. Not all of those are North Glen residents. Not everybody joins the NSO. We might have somebody that just comes and plays bridge, or just comes and goes to one of the fitness classes. So we get a lot of people coming in and out. I'm not sure that we have a definitive way to track that number.
Okay, you've answered that. Thank you. Another question I have is, I always find myself asking these questions. The business judgment rule under fiduciary duty requires that I ask this question. When you talk about market rates and you're talking about senior housing, what are you talking about when you're talking about market rates? Just so we have a perspective for those in the audience that are viewing this right now.
Yeah, that's a
What
great
are
question.
market rates?
So there is a national index that is adjusted even at the state levels for average median income. And so through our ACS census data, we have established what our average median income is. And for North Glen, roughly, I believe, for a household of two, it's approximately $70,000 and change, somewhere in that range of orders. So typically, when we look at AMI or average, or the AMI rate, when we talk about something being at 60%, means that whatever that median income and what that housing is for that price is typically how that gets calibrated. A lot of that also comes into what are the current rent rates that are in a given market. We have seen variation through the housing analysis that, you know, back in the early teens of the 2000s, we were around $2 to $2.25 a square foot. That number's now come down probably around $1.80 to in some cases down to like $1.67. But those numbers vary based on what the market demand and how much is out there right now in the market. So those are a couple of different of those variables that take that into account. Does that answer?
Not quite.
What am I missing for you?
The average size of the Carl's Farm residence for senior will be how many square feet? 1,500?
No. They're mostly one bedroom, 1 and 2 bedroom units that will probably be between 600 and 1,100 square feet.
So 600 to 1,100 square feet times your $1.80 per square foot number,
And then take and then take 40% off of that.
and 40% off.
Yes, and that's typically how you get there. So, and keep in mind that, you know, that's not necessarily, they're gonna be pricing that, you know, based off of a more narrowed down formula. I'm talking in very high level things. If you'd like, I could be happy to get you more information on that. But as a general rule, it's the area median income, and then it's a percentage of that. I would say that as of right now, and when we look at the region, and not just North Glen specific, we are the accessible housing for the North Metro area, hands down. For first-time homeowners, transitional housing, and also for rent market. We are at the lower end of the spectrum. There's only a few communities in the north that are lower than us, but that we really represent accessible housing for regional, for the north regional area.
Still expensive.
There's no question.
So I'm just gonna say, so you've got a number what that range is. Are we looking at 1,800 to 2,400 per month rent before utilities?
I wouldn't want, I'd have to go and take a closer look. We can actually ask DBG
Okay.
what their rent rates are, but be happy to provide that.
I'm just saying, we're kind of having the braggadocio right now that senior housing at Carl's Farm is going to be there for us. We've always been advertising that, so I'm just wondering what the real number is when the rubber meets the road and people go in to negotiate where they're going to live and they're going to rent. What would that cost be? That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, I don't know that off the top of
Yeah,
my head.
and that's before utilities, I'm assuming, and
Depends. A
Oh,
lot of these facilities have different types of
Yeah.
programs, and also keep in mind that there's LEAP through the county where they
Yeah.
can take advantage of if they're income qualified for that, which gives them a subsidized rate as well.
in the 172 unit going in, if I remember right, that was like roughly $2,300. Was that
I
about
believe
right?
so, yeah.
Yeah, that was a number for that.
Yep.
Okay, I don't mean to put you on the spot, Brooke.
No, that's fine.
I'm just asking questions here.
Yep.
Because we seem to be somewhat glib about the money being spent, but we don't really get down to actual numbers to know what they are. And, you know, I think your candor about describing the $1 million program, first and last mile, I think was very I really appreciate your coming forward with that.
Yeah,
Puts
and
it
keep in
into-
mind, that's a call and ride.
Yeah,
program.
sure, absolutely. But it puts it into perspective.
Yeah,
So thank you.
absolutely.
Councilmember Condo?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Probably a question for Eddie, and that is, you have, say, InnovAge out there that's kind of providing, obviously, a bundled package of care, senior activities and things like that. Are you partnering with them, or what are your thoughts about opportunities working with them?
We are not currently working with them, but again, you know, we're at the very beginning stages of our programming, so I mean, I think all options are on the table, you know, as we start digging into this and looking at where we want to really start with our programming. I think that's a very valid point, so we'll take that back and to the team.
Yeah, I've seen a few neighbors close to where I live who were InnovAge. Unfortunately, they passed, but it seemed like that was a good program for them to kind of get out and get the transportation, get the care, and get the socialization. And, you know, I won't say it was all soup to nuts, but it seemed like it was a pretty good program.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Quick statement before my question. On the flip side to that, not affordable senior housing, regular senior housing, is also important because I've actually talked to residents on my street who have a beautiful home and can afford to sell their home and would like to move into something like that. And so where price isn't quite an option, and that opens those bigger homes to younger new families. So I think, you know, that whole kind of cycle is important to have diversity of housing, even though the price tag is a little shocking. But I've had residents who are like, oh yeah, I actually think this is something that we would love to move into because we're still mobile, but we really don't want to take care of this huge yard anymore. And we have all the space, all the kids are gone. So that's just a statement, another perspective, right? Because we have one side, but there's a need for it as well, I think. But we'll see how that pans out. And then my question is something that City Manager Guyer mentioned, that we can advocate more legislative-wise. And so I didn't want to miss that piece. And I keep forgetting because I'm jet lagged again. So I just wanted to make sure I brought it up, how we can help in that legislative process. Is that a legislative committee discussion? But just, I think it's a good discussion.
That's a good idea. I could add it to the next meeting on November 20th, if I have that right, for the committee to talk about it. And I'll go ahead and put some language in the legislative policy guide. I'll come up with something so you all will be able to react to it anyways. Because I think as we move forward, in past years, conversation around seniors has typically been related to the senior homestead exemption. But I think, you know, based on Councilmember Long's question and what we've heard and the work that Adams County is doing, there's going to be a greater need for greater advocacy.
I think that's a great idea. He's okay with that. And then maybe with the police videos, there could be a whole video on how to, you know, get your lockbox set up, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
Those videos are great. They're great. So it's just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Long, did you have any more questions?
Yeah, I'm going to make a statement too. I have a 98-year-old woman that lives on my block, and we take care of each other. And that's what you said, and we do that. We watch out, and down the line, we take care of one another. And she is so fearful of having not to be able to continue living in her home. So I just want to counter and make the statement that there's a lot of folks, they're seniors that want to stay in their homes. They have no intention of whatever leaving their homes because that is their place. I mean, that's what it's all about. So We do everything we can to help them stay in place. Constituents that I've been talking with, that's the last thing you want to do is be forced to move out, which is why they're a little bit concerned when we start talking about some of the new zoning and the override. So just to explain it to them is sometimes difficult. So just to put it out there, we got folks that want to stay where they are. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. I think that's it.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you very much for all of that. Yeah,
That's great.
so much information. I appreciate it. All right, the next item is our new City Hall furniture update. Brooke, come on back.
All right, my role is very limited in this one. I'm just gonna tee this up and introduce folks, and then Eric's gonna come up as well. So we have Stefan and Brittany are here tonight to talk about furniture for the new City Hall. More specifically, we're gonna give you an overview of everything that's going on. Eric's gonna tee this up for you, and then I believe we will be bringing in some pieces for you guys to try out. So with that, I will hand it over to Eric. Thank you.
Well, Brooke stole some of my thunder, but good evening, Mayor and members of City Council. AMD and Workplace Resource are here this evening to provide you with an overview of the furniture throughout the new building. Stefan Hall with AMD will focus on the remainder, or a reminder of basically kind of the design intent that the architect team had in their design. And Brittany Hagee is here from Workplace Resources, who is our furniture vendor. And she will walk you through kind of the direction we're going in the different areas of the building. I just want to point out that the furniture selection has not been fully finalized at this point, but we did think this was a good opportunity to have a touch point with council, bring up kind of where the direction that we're going in, and kind of get your feedback as we move forward. We do anticipate finalizing furniture selection sometime in Q1 of next year. That'll give enough time to order the furniture and get it in time, obviously, for the grand opening event. So after the presentation, you'll see us kind of clear out some chairs here. And we just hope to have a fun event with you all this evening, kind of sampling different chairs throughout the entirety of the building, and then giving you an opportunity to sit in chairs that would be at the council dais and give your feedback. I think we have 3 chair options there, and then we have 2 chair options for public chairs as well. So we'd love your feedback on all those chairs. This similar process was done with staff over the past month or so, where 3 different types of task chairs or office desk chairs were brought in, and staff sat in different ones and had an opportunity to kind of go through those as well and vote on those. So we'll have the winners here this evening to show you as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to our team. And you will see me disappear because I'm going to go start getting some chairs ready. So you guys don't have to be here super late this evening, but hopefully this is a fun evening for you.
Okay, hello, council members. Good to see you again.
Keep going forward, I think. Yep, it'll be just next one.
I didn't have a presentation for the packet. Might be behind this one because when the presentation changed, no one told me that.
All right. Wonderful. So, as Eric said, we hope this is fun, and we hope it's a reminder of where you guys have been, and we're dialing in now to furniture, which means the design is very close to being, well, the design is complete, but the furniture is one of the last packages, of course, you'll see. So I have a few slides just as a refresher of the interior design and the intent behind that. And we've worked very closely, of course, with staff and with Workplace Resource, and you'll hear mostly from Brittany tonight. I'll be off this podium very quickly. But we've worked closely with them to have a continuity of the vision. And so without further ado, the general concept behind the building, besides to really be a cosmopolitan building and the city of North Glen to plant a flag for the metro region, is to bring the park and nature, which is inherent to this site, into the building. And so the material, the exterior material palette is all natural materials, materials that will weather, that will patina, and that will last for decades for a civic building. As we take that concept and we move to the interior, the public spaces primarily, this A and B, the two primary public lobbies, will be furnished with, again, natural materials. You all, those who are able to take a tour, and I know there's some more festivities on site as things are getting constructed, but got to see the cross-laminated timber wood structure. And the remainder of the palette is subdued to allow the furniture and the textiles to really pop and be those pieces of color. Moving over to the council chambers, bringing really the palette of blues and greens, picking up from the blues and greens of the North Glen logo. And so the council chamber brings in biophilia and the patterns of the carpet and other swatches. The transaction lobby, again, bringing in a calm blue and then allowing pops of color to be accented through the furniture. The furniture pieces you'll see today, they're all intentionally very neutral, and they're not the final fabrics nor materials, and Brittany can talk more about that. But instead, they're really a discussion of the furniture pieces themselves and to be evaluated for comfort and style, et cetera. And then the office environments up on level 2 really bring in the energetic oranges inherent to the North Glen logo. And with that, hopefully that brings back memories of going through this before, and want to pass it off to Brittany, who will go through the furniture.
Thank you, Stefan. Great to be here. Thank you guys for having me. So I am Brittany Hagee with Workplace Resource. So I am the furniture dealer that's helping City of North Glen and AMD kind of bring this vision to life. And when I was first brought on, did I press that? When I was first brought on, one of the first items that was brought to my attention was how do we bring employee engagement into the design conversation? And so I thought that was really great that you guys were valuing what the employees thought and trying to be part of the design process. And so as Eric mentioned, we did provide a handful of task chair options and conference chair options, some of those areas that the staff will be experiencing on a daily basis. So I did come down here for a couple of hours on one of the days. A lot of the employees came by, tested a lot of the chairs out. I was there to answer any questions that they had, make sure that they were asking the right questions, and I think it was a really great event, and people really felt like they were valued for their feedback. So with that, we did have a winner of the task chair that you'll see on the right. 72.5% of the employees selected this as their first option. And then as well as the conference chair, the one that was selected was 60% of the individuals selected that as the first option. So it was pretty substantial of what the clear winners were. Anna White.
Very nice, Manna.
And I'm like,
Again, the finishes are just, they're not set in stone yet. We're working through that right now, but. Then I'll take you through to some of the shared spaces, so a lot of the community and public spaces. As Stefan had mentioned, the transaction lobby bringing some of those bright colors in with the furniture, keeping that neutral tones and the architectural finishes, and then having that statement piece with the furniture right when you walk in, keeping it welcoming and inviting, very easy helpful for wayfinding as well. The council chambers, so a little bit of an upgrade from where we are now. So you'll see some of these seating options that you guys get to test out today. Again, finishes are just as a placeholder right now, but we did want to focus on some of the drivers for this room. So something that was easily stackable, comfortable for a long periods of time, easy to move around. So I think we tried to focus on that, narrowing it down to a couple of selections for you guys to test out. The community room, again, focusing on the flexibility of the space, and so making sure the tables and chairs were, could be reconfigured easily, whether that's, nesting and folding and moved off to the storage space that's connected to this area, and definitely the flexibility of if there's multiple different ways that this room is going to be used, how do we accommodate that with furniture? Upper collaboration, so this is on the second level, some staff areas of just incorporating different pieces of lounge and tables, some ancillary pieces that will work well with the architectural finishes, bringing in some fun pops of color for employees to hang out in between meetings. As well as the break area. So again, bringing some functional pieces in that work with the architectural finishes of the building, but then still bringing some of those playful colors in into those spaces. So now we get to demo a couple of chairs. If you guys don't have any questions.
Any questions? No?
Mayor, just to interrupt an important logistical piece, we had intended to recess for this part for the chair demo, so Brandon, you just need to go to recess for this part. Thanks.
That's fine. And Councilmember Burns has dropped off.
What did I do wrong?
Well, welcome back. We just looked at chairs. It was very fun. And now we're done. That was the last item on the agenda tonight, so we are adjourned. Thank you.